The chandelier caught the rim of my mother's crystal glass as she raised it. Voice polished and certain. $80,000, she said, smiling across the table at my sister. That's what we're committing to Brooke's year in Paris, the full program. Rent. Flights. Everything so she can focus on building her future in global marketing without distractions. I was still in my barista apron, the scent of scorched espresso and bleach clinging to my skin after a double at the Pike Place Cafe. My fork stopped halfway to my plate. The words came out quieter than I intended. I'm short $2,000 on my spring tuition deposit this semester. I have a repayment plan. I just need. My mother's eyes met mine without warmth. You don't deserve any more help, Riley. Not after the choices you've made. 5 words. Spoken evenly. But they detonated everything I thought I still believed about family. My father reached for the wine bottle as if I hadn't spoken. Brooke stared at her plate, suddenly fascinated by the pattern on the china. No one contradicted her. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was familiar. Heavy with years of being told that my role was to be useful, quiet, and grateful for whatever scraps remained after the spotlight moved on. That dinner was 4 years ago. Last week I stood on a stage and handed exactly $80,000, my own money, to a scholarship fund for young women from immigrant families who were taught that silence is duty and worth must be earned through sacrifice. My parents watched from the audience, their practiced smiles fracturing like old porcelain. But the story doesn't begin with that moment of return. It begins much earlier, with a birthday card containing $20 tucked inside a plain envelope and a lecture about how true independence builds stronger character. I was 10 the first time the difference between Brooke and me crystallized. Her birthdays were production's balloons, a 3-tier cake, relatives forming a perfect semicircle while our mother delivered speeches about Brooke's brightness, her charm, how she would one day bring honor and connections to the family. Cameras flashed. I sat on the periphery, watching wax melt onto frosting I wasn't meant to taste until the important child had blown out the candles. My own birthday that year brought a generic card, $20, and a calm explanation from our father that handouts weaken a person. In our culture, children learn self-reliance early, he said, echoing words I would hear in different forms for the next decade. Brooke got the newest laptop for her advanced classes and social media presence. I got the hand-me-down desktop because you're practical. Riley, you fix things. She received the larger bedroom for sleepovers that strengthened family alliances. I received the quiet corner room where no one noticed when I stayed up late teaching myself to code, so I could help Brooke with her projects when her deadlines loomed. The summer I turned 15, I entered a regional coding competition and built an algorithm that predicted urban delivery delays using weather patterns, traffic data, and historical retail trends. It wasn't flawless, but it worked well enough to win first place. The notification arrived by email. No ceremony. I printed the certificate on our aging printer and showed it to my father in the backyard, hands trembling slightly despite my effort to appear casual. He glanced at it, nodded once. That's a beginning. As if first place were merely the floor, not an achievement earned in solitude. Our mother never asked what the project actually did. That same evening, Brooke posted about her upcoming interview for a prestigious youth leadership program. The family group chat lit up with congratulations. None of the notifications were for me. By high school, I had stopped expecting fairness. Instead, I created a small community app that gave real-time shuttle and volunteer ride updates for students and elderly residents who relied on public transit in the rain, soaking corners like the ones I waited on every morning. A local tech blog gave it a short mention. My mother read the article at breakfast, set it down, and said, "That's nice. But time spent coding alone could have been spent networking, making the right connections. That's what matters in America." Riley face. Relationships. Opportunities that reflect well on the family. She clipped the article anyway. Later I realized she kept it only because the family surname appeared beneath the title. Graduation day arrived under clear skies. They sat in the front row, my mother in a carefully chosen pastel dress that photographed beautifully, my father in his best suit. When my name was called, I crossed the stage and looked out. Brooke was cheering for a friend across the aisle. My parents remained seated, polite smiles fixed like masks. No one stood. That night I overheard my mother hugging Brooke in the kitchen while I washed dishes. "I'm so proud of both my girls, especially you, sweetheart." The camera was rolling for family photos. I smiled on cue. Alone later. I pinned my old community transit pass above my desk next to the faded certificate no one had acknowledged. Rain drummed the window like a slow metronome counting every unnoticed effort. That was the night I finally accepted the family equation. Brooke equaled pride and social capital. I equaled silent support. No achievement would rewrite it. For years of distance followed, State University on scholarships and part-time jobs. Fewer visits home. Calls that went unanswered because no one noticed I had stopped calling. Then came the Paris dinner. The room smelled of over-roasted duck and my mother's signature perfume, the expensive bottle reserved for important announcements. Brooke practiced French phrases under her breath. My fingers still carried the faint metallic scent of espresso machines I had repaired that afternoon. My father cleared his throat, the sound that preceded non-negotiable declarations. "We've finalized it. $80,000 for Brooke's immersive global marketing program in Paris. Tuition, housing, airfare, living expenses. She deserves to shine without financial worry. This is an investment in her future and, by extension, the family's standing." The number landed like a physical blow. I swallowed once. Kept my voice level. "That's the full amount?" My mother nodded brightly. I continued. "I'm short $2,000 on my tuition deposit this semester. I can repay it over the summer. I've arranged a payment plan." My mother's expression shifted, the same look I had seen softened over the years, but never this naked. "You don't deserve any more help, Riley. You chose the safe, practical path. State school. Computer science instead of something visible. You made your choices. These are the consequences." My father added quietly, reaching again for the wine. "We put resources where they generate returns." Something inside me went perfectly still. Not rage. Not tears. Clarity. The chandelier's hum. The scrape of silver on china. The scent of candle wax and perfume, every detail etched itself into memory like evidence I would carry forever. I smiled once. Small and precise. "I understand." I stood, chair scraping loud enough to make my mother flinch, and walked out without another word. The Seattle rain had begun. By the time I reached my tiny Capitol Hill studio, my phone vibrated with messages. "Don't be dramatic. You're overreacting. Family first." I turned the screen face down and let the dark take them. The next morning I woke with an unnatural calm. I made coffee, opened my contacts, and deleted every name one by one: mother, father, Brooke, aunts, uncles, cousins. No announcement. The silence that remained felt cleaner than any apology ever could. By day I fixed Wi-Fi and reset passwords for impatient customers. By night I coded under a cheap yellow lamp while rain tapped steady code against the glass. I tracked every hour, every dollar earned. The rule was simple: document everything. When people leave voids, data fills them. Months later, I joined a small logistics startup downtown as a contract engineer. The office smelled of new carpet and relentless ambition. Late one evening, the founder, Ethan Caldwell, leaned over my screen while I optimized delivery routing algorithms. "That's not a side project," he said. "Make it the main one." We tested the prototype, Precision Flow, first with local coffee roasters, bakeries, florists. Each clean dataset. Each percentage gain in efficiency felt like reclaiming territory lost at that dinner table. I kept exhaustive records, logs, client emails, emissions reports, every line of code timestamped. Proof belonged to me. When the pilot delivered 22% efficiency gains and clients renewed, Ethan offered to spin Precision Flow into its own venture with me as co-founder and CTO. We signed papers in a glass room overlooking Lake Union, rain streaking the windows in the rhythm I had learned to work by. My signature, Riley Chin. No one else's name attached. The next 3 years moved in graphs and quiet victories. Summit Logistics expanded from 1 floor to 3. Our sustainable routing model reached national trade journals. An investor from Silicon Valley wrote a 7-figure check after reviewing our raw pilot data. I still wore the same hoodies. Still pulled my hair back the same way. But I upgraded my laptop and kept the old one in a drawer like a relic. One evening I found a torn note from the night after the Paris dinner. Mom crossed out so hard the pen had ripped the paper. I ran my finger over the tear, folded the paper, and filed it in a box labeled Lessons Archived. Then a real estate alert pinged on a Sunday morning. Modern waterfront home in Medina listed at $5.2 million. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Private dock reaching into Lake Washington. I stared at the photos the way you look at something you were never meant to claim. 3 weeks later the keys were in my hand, no co-signers. No family name on any document. The morning I moved in, the air smelled of fresh cedar and possibility. I walked empty rooms filled with perfect northern light and hung one single item on the living room wall, the old community transit pass, framed behind glass. Beneath it, in small tight letters, broken roots still grow stronger paths. Some nights I stood at those windows watching rain trace slow lines down the glass and wondered, not with anger anymore. Only curiosity, whether my parents still measured a child's worth by projected returns. Whether they ever noticed the daughter who had stopped asking. The call came on a Saturday while my partner Casey, who had never known the version of me that begged for scraps, was making coffee. An unfamiliar Seattle number. I answered. Riley? It's Brooke. Her voice shook. I drove past Medina. Your name is on the gate. That house how? I listened to the sprinklers outside cycling in their programmed rhythm. What exactly are you asking? Brooke. The call dropped. Within an hour the messages flooded in: mother, father, relatives whose numbers I had erased years earlier. Voicemails wrapped desperation in different tones. My mother's was performative polish. Darling, Brooke told us something unbelievable. You can't let old jealousy divide us now that she's expecting. Family supports each other. My father's was measured disappointment. Let's discuss this as adults. Riley, we're still family. A courier arrived the same evening with heavy cream stationery in my mother's handwriting. The letter opened with calculated warmth: Brooke's pregnancy, the honor of becoming an aunt, then moved to the request. Victor's import business had struggled. The house needed repairs. Unexpected wedding expenses last year. I know you're not cold. Riley. Children from good Vietnamese families understand obligation. I read it twice in the driveway as the sun set over the lake, folding the paper smaller and smaller until it fit neatly in the trash bin. 3 days later, I mailed 2 short letters on plain paper. To my mother, continued contact requires 3 conditions: no financial requests, no guilt, no unannounced visits. Respect for my present boundaries is non-negotiable. To my father, you called it investment and return. Here is mine: freedom. Account closed. He replied with a single text: meet me Thursday, 10 a.m. The cafe near the Fremont Bridge. He arrived on time. Coat pressed. Eyes tired. You look different. We sat. He tried smoothing it over. Your mother spoke in stress. Parents aren't perfect. We did what we could. I waited until he reached the familiar refrain. It wasn't a mistake. Dad. It was math. You invested $80,000 in image and social capital. I built actual value out of silence and my own hands. The difference is honesty. He stared at his untouched coffee until the steam disappeared. When I stood to leave, I added only, "You owe me nothing now." That was the entire point. The annual Seattle Future Leaders in STEM Gala arrived 2 weeks later. Summit Logistics was the title sponsor, funding scholarships for first-generation students, especially daughters of immigrant families who had been told their role was silent usefulness rather than ambition. The ballroom shimmered with gold light and champagne. Casey squeezed my hand. Ready? My parents moved through the crowd with practiced smiles, my mother in the same pearls she wore to the Paris dinner. Brooke's pregnancy just beginning to show. My father in his best suit. My mother reached me first. Voice sweet but edged. We came to congratulate you on everything you've built. But remember, real success includes giving back to family. Brooke needs support for the baby. Your father still has that roof. I let her finish every calculated sentence. Then I turned to the coordinator and said quietly, "I'm ready." A stage assistant brought the pearl-white envelope I had prepared. I took the microphone. The room quieted. Tonight, on behalf of Summit Logistics, I am personally contributing $80,000 to the scholarship fund, specifically for young women from immigrant families who are taught that silence equals duty and that their worth must be proven through endless usefulness rather than simply existing. You once called it an investment, I said, looking directly at my mother. So do I. The oversized check was brought forward under spotlight. Applause began slow, then surged. My mother's smile had frozen and cracked. My father stood motionless in the doorway. Brooke was crying, whether from shame, shock, or something more complicated. I couldn't tell. When the applause faded, I handed back the microphone, walked off stage past their stunned faces, and stepped into the cool Seattle night. Rain fell thin and steady, washing the city clean. I stood for a long moment, letting it touch my face, and simply breathed. Afterward, I posted nothing. The silence traveled faster than any headline. The next morning, I stood barefoot on the cold wood deck, watching the lake turn silver under soft rain. My phone remained face down inside, quiet since the gala. That quiet no longer felt like loss. It felt chosen. Casey brought me coffee. Normal sounds, washing machine, birds, distant ferry horn, once seemed impossible for someone like me. Inside my office, the glass walls framed the water like living art. The framed transit pass hung on the wall. I opened my therapy journal and wrote the final entry. They taught me love must be earned through usefulness. I learned peace requires no proof at all. Outside, a great blue heron lifted from the water, wings beating slow and certain toward wherever it chose. Thunder murmured somewhere beyond Medina's calm. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights one by one, and sat by the window listening. The rain no longer sounded like the night I walked away from that dinner table. It no longer carried sorrow or anger. It sounded like the life I had chosen instead.